Well, hello again, everybody. It's Jim here with another one of our Global Missions podcasts. And today I have the great privilege of being joined by Joyce Tempel. Joyce is one of my team here at the Global Ministry Center in Lenexa in Kansas. She works in Global Missions as a mobilization coordinator. Joyce and her husband are pastors. She's been a missionary. She's a mum and a wife and a wonderful representative and ambassador for Jesus. And it's a privilege to have you here with us today. So welcome, Joyce.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
So you can tell by our accents that neither Joyce or I are American.
Yes, yes.
We often laugh that we are the foreigners here, but she is originally from Brazil. And as you know, I'm from Scotland. So, Joyce, tell us a little bit about your journey, how you came from Brazil all the way to serving here in Global Missions.
Yeah, well, I came from I come from a small town. I come from a small town in São Paulo state,
Right.
and I'm from a small Nazarene church. I think is the reality of many people around the world. And if I think about my life, if I were to go back to talk to myself as a teenager and tell her what God had planned for her life, I think she would not have believed. Joyce at 16 would never have believed what God had planned for her. At the age of 16, God radically changed my life. I remember one evening in the middle of the week, I was hanging out with friends, and my family was at a prayer meeting nearby, a couple of blocks away from the place I was, and suddenly, just by just hanging out with friends, suddenly I felt drawn to that meeting. I knew they were in a prayer meeting, and they have invited me to that church of many times, and I had nothing to do. I did not want anything to do with Christ or
Right.
his church. But then I remember feeling that drawn to go to that prayer meeting, and I decided to go, and I stopped in front of that church. It was a very small, simple church, and I even sat on the sidewalk thinking if I should enter that church or not. And then I finally said, yeah, okay, Lord, yes, I will enter. I didn't even know it was God talking to me, but I finally just decided to enter that church. And when I did, I encountered God. I encountered God's presence in such a powerful and personal way. I remember taking the first steps inside of that church, and people were just praying, and nobody welcomed me, but I felt God's presence when I entered that church. I not did not only felt God's presence, but I felt a great conviction of sin, and I surrendered my life to God. And at 16, I can tell you it could only be God,
Right.
because I had nothing. I wasn't thinking about my sins, or I wasn't thinking how far I was from God. But I remember as I was walking in between pews and saw people praying, I felt what I later I learned about John Wesley when he talked about his experience, and he felt his heart strangely warmed.
Yeah.
And I remember that experience, and I do not have a good memory, but I remember at 16 that I felt that my whole body was strangely warm when I was walking inside that church. And that feeling started from the top of my head and went all the way down in my body. And then I really understood that I was in the presence of this holy God, and I was a sinner, and I needed to surrender my life to God. And I did. And that evening, that encounter with God changed the course of my life. And the Church of the Nazarene at the time had just been inaugurated in my town. So it was a new church. And I visited that church a couple of weeks after that experience. And I fell in love with the Church of the Nazarene. And I fell in love with the people there. And I decided this is my church. And I asked the pastor, I said, I had an encounter with Jesus not too long ago, and I want to be baptized. I want to be part of this church. And then I really quickly became very engaged locally. And then 1 year later, at 17, I was doing my devotional, and I was reading Jeremiah 1. And when I was reading Jeremiah 1, I sensed God calling me to missions.
Wow.
But I was from a small town, from a small church. My family was a very simple family. I had barely got out of my state. I didn't even know much about other countries, other languages, but I really felt that God was calling me to be engaged in missions, to be a missionary. I felt too young, just like Jeremiah, and I felt inadequate, but I wanted to be faithful to that calling. And I said, yes, Lord. And I, I started by serving my local church. I knew that I couldn't be a missionary right away at 17, but I started serving my local church. So I became a youth leader. And then after that, I became a pastor's secretary because I wanted to learn everything I could, with my local leaders. And that path for cross-cultural missions wasn't very clear. But God kept guiding me one step at a time. And then I studied nursing and I attended Bible college at the same time. I did not want to waste time. Like I was always I had this sense of urgency. I want to do things. And so I studied a lot and had those two courses together. And then I remember I was the youngest and one of the few females in Bible college in Brazil. So I was very insecure. And another thing that really marked my life and my just my journey in missions was that when I was in college, I really was encouraged by the ministry of Dr. Naina Gunter. And she came to Brazil to preach at a chapel in our Bible college. And her example, when I was struggling with insecurity and being very young and being a female, I remember that her example there showed me that God could use me too. And I remember speaking to God and saying, I just want to be a missionary. So if there's a place for this female leader to lead our global church, there is a place for me to be a missionary for the Church of the Nazarene. So I kept going and I kept serving with my church in Brazil, and during those years of preparation, God used my nursing skills, and I gave all my summers to mission. So I would go to the Amazon rainforest and serve there during my school break, and I would help planting churches where I was. And later I volunteered as a missionary in Kenya when I graduated, and it was a great opportunity. I learned a lot. And from Kenya, I received an invitation to come to the U.S., and 1 year later, after that first invitation, I arrived here in 2007. I was very young, a newlywed, but yeah, God brought me to the U.S. in 2007, and I served with my husband and associate pastors in the state of Indiana for almost a decade. And then while doing that, I also served our global church as a translator and interpreter for global meetings. And then I started doing multicultural ministries and Nazarene missions teams as well. We would take teams to South America and Central America. When I was finishing my master's degree in missional leadership through NNU, I applied for a temporary job in global missions at the GMC in Kansas, and Marty hired me, Marty Hoskins.
Yeah.
And a couple of months later, serving as a temp at the GMC, he asked me to apply for a full-time job with Global Missions, and I did. And I've been here working with Global Missions now for 9 years. We are completing 9 years next week, actually. So yeah, amazing. It's been a great journey.
And we'll be right back.
Hi, my name is David Gilmore. I'm the pastor of Clyde Church of the Nazarene in British Isles South District, and I'm the author of the Foundry's Advent devotional resource for 2025, Hope of All the Earth. We live in a culture that's not designed for faithful waiting. Our world teaches us to demand instant gratification, and if we're not careful, we'll be swept along so quickly that we won't even notice. But into that relentless bullet train of life breaks the season of Advent, in which we're taught to slow down, to pause, to wait. Because the voice of Advent tells us again and again, not yet, not yet, not yet, but soon. And so the season of Advent brings a message of hope for the hopeless, peace for the restless, joy for those in despair, and abundant, extravagant, divine love for the unlovely and unloved. Hope of All the Earth is a journey for the entire faith community, offering daily reflections, discussion questions, and a space for journaling. It provides resources for pastoral, youth, and children's ministries to engage together, and it's available in both English and Spanish. We'd love you and yours to be a part of this journey of faithful, hopeful anticipation, and you can find more information in today's show notes.
You know, people listening to this will come from all different backgrounds.
Yeah.
And our background's very different, but some of our stories similar. I was 16 years of age when I gave my life to Jesus. And I kind of landed in a youth meeting for all sorts of reasons, not in any way interested, thinking I was going to meet God. And like you, had this incredible encounter. And it wasn't just the presence of God that got me, it was the reality of what Jesus did for me.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to be a preacher. I want to be an evangelist. And I didn't even know what those things were. And now, years later, sitting here as the Global Missions Director of the Church of the Nazarene, a church at that point in my life I had never even heard of. You think nothing is impossible for God. Nothing, no person's story is beyond God taking them to their destiny. And I love that. And the other thing I love is that you're right, you know, the idea that a young person, a woman, it doesn't matter who we are or what our life is at that point. God has a plan for us, and you are an amazing example of somebody God got a hold of, shaped, molded, and now is using so powerfully to help people all over the world go on missions, and of course then for others to come to Jesus.
Yeah, I remember the Bible verse that says, the one who calls you is faithful, and
Right.
he will do it.
Yeah.
He will do it. Yeah.
Amazing. So Joyce, you're part of our team, and now I know you as part of my team. And if you're just listening to this, you'll hear some of the dynamism and the compassion, the passion, the inspiration of Joyce. When my team have prayer meetings and I say, does anybody have anything to pray for? Joyce always has things of encounters with people, ways that she's helping people see Jesus. But not everybody knows you, and not everybody would know, well, what is mobilization and what does the mobilization coordinator do? So Joyce, tell us a little bit about your ministry, what your ministry does, and kind of day to day, how do you help people come into global missions?
Yeah. So my work as the Global Missions Mobilization Coordinator is twofold. So I give global support and collaboration to the regional mobilization teams. We have regional mobilization coordinators for every region, and my job is to support them. You know, my team creates and manages resources that will inspire and guide leaders and individuals who are exploring a call to missions. And everything that we create is available in our 5 official languages. We are a global church and we are always thinking globally. But I'm also part of the mobilization team for USA and Canada, for the region here. So as I said, every region has a mobilization team and they work closely with other ministries, but especially NMI. So we resource NMI with materials for missions mobilization. We inform them about, you know, the application process for Nazarene missions if anybody's interested in applying for missions. And we also guide leaders to assist those called to serving missions. We're always in contact with the local churches, helping them to walk this journey with the candidates. And I also represent, you know, our office by speaking at events and just inspire people who are interested in Nazarene missions. So basically, mobilization works with candidates and local churches from the moment that they start an application or feel interested in missions or want to know more until they are ready for a placement. So that's the job of mobilization. And we see the process as a journey of discovery.
Right.
It's a journey of discernment and a journey of preparation. So we try to get to know candidates. We do our best to get to know candidates and to help them get to know us in this journey as well. Now, an interesting fact about mobilization is that we have an average of 50 applications a month from all the regions. So every month we receive around 50 applications from people who are interested in starting their journey or knowing more. And it is a challenge. But I'm glad that our efforts, to follow up with them are decentralized. So that's why I mentioned about how we give support to our regional mobilization coordinators as well. So for me, the easiest way to think strategically about mobilization for our global church and to do my job well as the global coordinator for mobilization is to think about mobilization as a funneling pipeline.
Right.
So I think of this flow that starts with awareness always, which is broad. So let's bring the information to the local church, to our global people. So that it starts with awareness and then goes to interest. So we have to create initiatives for leaders and candidates, and we're always thinking of having this vision and strategy for events or resources that we can create for leaders and candidates. And then from there, we go to development. We need to provide opportunities for developing the call of our people. Many of them, many times when God places a calling in somebody's heart, and that's what I always used to say and tell people, it often marks the beginning of a journey, and it's just the beginning. And then so we have to think about that development, and then we go even further with equipping. So those who are going through this process, we also create events and we prepare them in a very contextualized way based on where they come from and where they're going to serve. So we have this equipping part of the flow of mobilization, and our goal is to get people to placement, to place them, to find a place where their skills and abilities will fulfill a need in the world. So that's basically how I think about mobilization, and that's basically what I do.
That's wonderful. And so in terms of the Church of the Nazarene, we're a local church, but we're also a global church. And I love to say that we're a local church with a global heart, and we're a global church with a local family. And so first thing you said there, Joyce, was awareness. And that's really important, because if people don't know about something, they can't care about it, they can't pray about it, they can't get involved in it. So the awareness part is really powerful, isn't it? It's really important that the local partnerships know what's going on. And key to that, you mentioned NMI. Now, for those who don't know, NMI is Nazarene Missions International. And NMI is our local advocate in every church around the world. Can you say something about what's happening currently in NMI? Because it's kind of a new, exciting season with NMI and global missions, and how the local NMI can help the local church hear about our global mission.
Yeah. With NMI, we're working closely with Cheryl Crouch, the director of NMI, and her team. And what we think about mobilization is that we have this beautiful global structure that global missions, mobilization is not at every field or district or local church, but NMI is. And they are advocating for us. They are promoting missions. They are talking about the opportunities and possibilities and needs. So everything we create as a mobilization office, we think about NMI and how NMI can use. We have created Send Me resources, and we provide that to our NMI presidents. They can email our office, sendme@nazarene.org. They can ask for those resources. We have them available digitally. We have them available in print. We have videos, and we can send it to them, and they can use at their NMI convention if they have workshops, if they have meetings with the committee and they want to engage people in missions. We have resources available to them. And what they are doing now of just thinking again globally and how we can partner, how we can collaborate and work together is just great and very promising.
Well, yeah,
so I praise God for Cheryl's life. She's
amazing. That's wonderful.
Great.
If you didn't know this, listeners, the NMI is actually part of Global Missions. It's one team, and we serve in one department because we have one heart and one vision. I was speaking, Joyce, recently to some NMI leaders, and I said, look, without you, I don't have a voice. Missions doesn't have a voice in the local church. but without us, you don't have anything to say because we put the M in NMI.
Mm-hmm.
We are missions, and without missions, you're just NI and just international Nazarenes, but without a mission. And we want this mission to be all over the world. And thinking about that, Joyce, we want to encourage more and more people into the missions journey. Are there practical ways that we can do that?
Yeah. So because of where I come from and all the experiences that I had, I always believe that information is power. So
Right.
as I said, my passion is to inspire people to believe that if God is calling them to Nazarene missions, there's always a way to say yes. And I want to inspire our churches to support the calling of these people. And sometimes we think that, we have to have everything figured out, before we say yes to God, before we make ourselves available.
Mm.
But then I like to remind them of the prophet Isaiah, and I mentioned about the send me resources, and that's the idea behind, all the send me resources, because when Isaiah said, "Here I am, Lord, send me," he did not know where, how, and when. He just made himself available. And that's what God is looking for. God is looking for hearts willing to obey.
Right.
So when I think about calling, I think about ordinary people with an extraordinary purpose.
Yeah.
And the practical ways that I could help people and encourage people to say yes to missions is, first of all, prayer, your prayer life, and reading the Bible. So I would ask people, I would encourage them to pray about their calling, to read the Bible, to cultivate intimacy with God.
Mm.
You need to know God's heart, because it is his mission that we are talking about. We're talking about his calling. So it's not our mission, it's not our calling, it's his mission, it's his calling. And there's no better way to know him than to talk to him and read his word. So I tell people, just invest in your time with the Lord. And as you pray, ask God to ignite in your heart a desire to answer his call and to fulfill the purpose that he has for your life. And whether it's missions or not, you have a purpose. So, cultivate that intimacy with the Lord in prayer and reading the Bible. And then another practical way I would say is church, get involved at your local church. Church is very important. So that first-hand experience at a local church with your local community is very, very important. At church, you are going to learn how to serve people. You are going to learn about teamwork. You are going to learn about the challenges that we face. And not only that, but as you serve locally, and I tell this a lot for, especially to young people, as you serve locally, God will confirm your calling through the leaders that you are serving with, through the people around you. And when you are ready to serve cross-culturally, your church, your leaders will be an important part of your support network. They will invest in you. So that's another practical way, church involvement. And then the another thing that I tell people is that invite yourself and put yourself in situations that will help you to have cross-cultural experiences. And you can do simple things about that. You can read about missions. You can listen to podcasts. You can watch videos. You can be also intentional and expose yourself to other cultures. Look around you. Look for opportunities to experience other cultures locally, if possible. I know for some people that's not possible. But then think about, again, reading about missions, listen to podcasts, go on a short-term mission trip. That's really important. You learn a lot about servanthood. You learn about flexibility and adaptability, which are all very important for a missionary candidate. So these would be kind of like the practical ways that you can say yes, that you can start thinking about when you to encourage you to say yes. So yeah.
That's great, Joyce. I would say, these are all the things that we want people to do. And remember also that God is the God of prevenient grace. He's calling people, he's stirring their hearts, and we help connect their heart call to real opportunities. And that to me is what we're trying to do in global missions. And I love the phrase you used there, ordinary people with an extraordinary purpose. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And thinking of our young people, you said, go on a missions trip. And you know this, but those listening, that's where Maggie and I met one another on a short-term missions trip. And that changed the course of our life. and we've been in ministry and missions ever since. And that's my heart for the next generation, Joyce. You know this. We have created a new movement, a permanent movement within Global Missions called The Cause, where we are seeking to raise up a generation in missions all around the world. And if God can call a 16-year-old from Brazil and a
Yeah.
16-year-old from Scotland, although much older than you are, God can call people from everywhere to anywhere. So help us understand then, as the cause is going to be this huge role, this pipeline, as you called it earlier, within the church in mobilization. How can the cause help young people or church leaders listening to this today who want to help their young people get into missions?
Yeah, yes. With the cause, we are inviting young people into a deeper engagement with God's mission through the Church of the Nazarene. We're taking the advantage of our global structure and the variety of ministry opportunities we have locally and globally to provide short-term opportunities for young people. So that's what we are doing. And as I mentioned before, we want to walk a journey of discovery and development with our young people. And with the cause, they will have an opportunity to serve others for a few weeks or months. Most people we encounter as we are mobilizing them, young people, they're not prepared for long term. So we want to provide that opportunity for them to serve others for just a few weeks or months. And there are mobilization studies today that they show that one of the greatest barriers for young people to serve is the lack of clear guidance, is the lack of clear direction. So with the cause, we are offering hands-on experiences with intentional guidance for their development. And here's the beautiful thing about global missions, because of our global structure, we can provide a variety of opportunities for missionary service. So always when I'm speaking, I'm always reminding people about that the beautiful thing that we have globally. So, missions organizations, many of them will offer an opportunity for one ministry only, church planting, let's say, or they will provide only medical missions.
Right.
But the Church of the Nazarene, through global missions, has the opportunity for people to serve in several areas of ministry. So it's not only church planting, we have administration, we have opportunities for people to serve in finance, communications, education, and healthcare, information technology, compassionate ministries, and of course, church planting and development. But that's a beautiful thing about the Church of the Nazarene, is that we have this global structure that we can provide a variety of ministries for people. So the idea is we want to find a place where your skills and abilities can fulfill a need in the world. And God is so creative and he's doing great things, in the world. And we want to be a part of that. And we want people to be a part of that as well. So that's what we are providing now with the cause for young people, that opportunity to develop their calling, to experience missions for short term.
It's amazing, Joyce. I mean, I was part of coming up with the idea of the cause, but actually, even here you talk about it makes me excited that what God is going to do. So I'm out a lot speaking to churches and to districts and NMI and different leaders. You're out speaking a lot. Cheryl from NMI is out speaking a lot. Of course, our general superintendents speak at the assemblies and all of our leaders. And I think the one thing the church loves more than anything is to hear stories. They love to hear stories of lives transformed, and they love to hear stories of people who've done something in missions and have a great outcome. I'm sure you have many, but could you give us a couple of stories, any things that you would help us understand how God has used somebody who stepped out and they were mobilized through mission and had a great experience?
Yeah, we do have many stories, and I love my job. I love to sing God doing great things through his people. But I can share two recent stories, and it's always teamwork. It's always teamwork. So the most recent story that I can think of is this. There's a young couple from Oklahoma. She's 21 and he's 25, and she's graduating from SNU next year. But they already applied for missions. They wanted to explore possibilities. And they had their hearts set for Japan.
Right.
but they needed more experience, and we all together, we recognize that. So during the mobilization process, it's a process of discernment. We try to discern together, and we knew, all of us together knew that they needed more experience. So we sent them, since she's still studying, we sent them for a short-term experience in Japan, because they had their hearts, set in Japan. So this summer, they spent 1 month in Japan. And for those who don't know much about Japan, the percentage of evangelical believers in Japan is
Right.
0.5%.
Wow. Yeah.
So Japan is widely considered an unreached country in missions world. So the couple, they went for 1 month this summer. They had a great experience. They were very engaged at a local church, and they felt God confirming their long-term call. So they came back. She still has 1 more year to go, but now they're still preparing, and we are in conversation about a long-term placement for them in Japan, in that unreached country.
Mhm.
And right after she graduates from college, we are in conversation about a placement for them in Japan. And then there's another candidate, because God is calling people from all over the world, and Global Missions want to send people from anywhere to everywhere. And the other recent stories, that I know, this young lady from Mexico. She's 22. She's an awesome lady. She visited us not too long ago here, at the GMC, and she went on a Discover Missions event 3 years ago. So we prepared this event for young people to discover their call, and it's just a 12-day event. And she went on a missions event 3 years ago, a Discover Missions in the Dominican Republic, and she felt that at the time that God was confirming her calling to missions. So she went back home, and she knew she needed to start getting really engaged at her local church. So she went back home. She was still studying, but then she decided to be very intentional regarding her engagement at the local church. And she went even beyond that. She started getting very engaged on a district level as well. So after that, the church and the district recognized her calling, and then they started fully supporting her in Mexico. And then after that, the last 2 summers, she gave it to short-term missions as well. So she attended the next Discover event last year in Kenya, but now at the time she was attending as a youth leader already. And then she did an awesome job, and God kept confirming, his calling for her life. And then this summer, she did an internship in North Africa, in a country that I cannot mention the name
Yep.
because it's a creative access area, but she did an internship there, and she loved it. She's back in Mexico now, finishing her last semester in college, and she feels a call for long term. And we are already in conversation with Eurasia for an assignment for her once she graduates. So these are exciting stories, and we have many others happening, not only here in our region, but all over the world. So God is being great. Yeah.
That's absolutely awesome, and I love hearing those stories. And if you're listening, you think, well, what can we do? Well, make sure that you pray, and we're going to make sure that you know all the resources that we have and all the people and places, and we'll tell you as much as we can to inspire you to pray. And obviously, the World Evangelism Fund. When you give to the World Evangelism Fund through your local church, you're not just throwing your money into a black hole of administration. You are literally supporting people going on mission all over the world, winning others to Jesus through love and compassion, what I love to call incarnational holiness in transformational ways. And that's what this is all about. But of course, Joyce, there's challenges, there's issues, there's problems. I was talking the other day to some leaders and said that our greatest asset as the Church of the Nazarene is our global church. We're all over the world. But one of our greatest challenges, of course, is that we're all over the world. And there are so many different things and factors that happen. And there's different languages. We are in nearly 200 languages on a Sunday morning. So
Yes.
with all of that, and with mobilizing new people, what are some challenges that we might face, and how might we overcome them?
Yeah. The first thing that I can think of is awareness. Again, as I mentioned before, information is power. Everything we create regarding mobilization, we do at least in our 5 official languages, and we're always open in conversation with our regional mobilization coordinators if they need more languages, if they have people interested. We are always open to share our resources and make them available for translation. But sharing information. We are creating information. We're helping, people to know what to do next, to know what God is doing through the Church of the Nazarene, but we need to share that information. And I'm talking again on a global level. So we do have opportunities locally and globally, and we are trying to do better in getting that information to leaders and to people who are, feeling a call to missions and don't know what to do next, to the leaders who also are mentoring them, are supporting them. So we are really trying to bring awareness. So we have the website and we have a social media, we have digital and printable resources, as I said, and we have NMI. So really working together
Right.
as a
Yeah.
team, and we're using all these venues to bring awareness, and it is a challenge. So if you're listening to this podcast and if you want to follow us on Instagram, is NAS Global Missions, at NAS Global Missions. That's our Instagram page. And the website, you can go to opportunities.nazarene.org, and you can see there all the opportunities available all over the world, and you can start your application there. You can send us an email, send me at nazarene.org. If you have questions, if you want to know more about our resources, if you want to talk to us, and we are always open to resource leaders, local churches, candidates. And I think awareness is the first thing. And then I think about also helping with misconceptions, As I was talking about the opportunities that we have available, I always like to mention that the role of a missionary has evolved. So we do not only send out ordained ministers to do church planting. God is creative, and he calls people in unique ways to do unique things. So I think that we need to really open up our vision for missions about that. And then I can think of advocacy as well.
Okay.
So give Global Missions through NMI and through mobilization the opportunity to advocate for missions, to engage the local congregation in prayer for missions, as you mentioned already, in promoting missions, in receiving missionaries, and supporting candidates and missionaries in their journey. So the church can be missional by being involved in missions locally, but also the church can be missionary by doing global things as well. And I believe that we are one of the few global organizations that has its own missionary agency to mobilize, to deploy, and to support its own missionaries. And we need the local churches. And, there is so much more to do. So we would use a lot of help from the churches to advocating for missions.
Yeah, that's the key. It is a partnership with the local
Yes.
church and the global. I've been in a number of roles in the church, but I'm a local pastor at heart. And one of the things that local pastors I would love to say to you, and you and your husband obviously have pastored as well, Joyce. When you get involved and interested in global mission, something happens in the spiritual realm where God gives you a greater passion for local mission. And God also not only blesses what you do around the world, but I think he causes faith to rise in your congregation for the people and the needs all around you. Would you think that was the case where you've served as pastors?
Yeah. We're always trying to inform our congregation. We pastor a Brazilian ministry at Central here in Lenexa, and we're always telling them what God is doing through the Church of the Nazarene all over the world. And they want to get engaged. They really do. They get excited from listening to stories and great things that are happening. We just received at a Bible study on a Wednesday evening a missionary from the Middle East, and she was sharing what God is doing there. And it was so exciting. People were like, "Oh, that's amazing. I want to be a part of that. What can I do? I can pray, I can give, give. So yeah, people want to know, and they get excited to be a part of this thing that is great. And then we think locally as well. We talk about how can we be present in amongst our community, and how we can reach out to those who are in need around us. And we're always thinking, locally and globally, always. And it's been a blessing. Yeah.
Wonderful. So Joyce, we've spoken a lot about all the things that we do and all the places that we go and all the excitement that we have. How do you keep yourself grounded? Just Joyce and Jesus.
Yeah. Well, I love Jesus. I love him very, very much. He's the love of my life. And I'm always, I like what people say that, when you are friends with somebody, and you walk with that person, you become more like them. And I want to walk with Jesus. I want to be his friend. I want to be like him. So I'm always trying to be intentional in my relationship with him. I like to be intentional in my prayer life. I don't have time to stop and pray for hours a day, but I try to have my devotional time, my quiet time with the Lord, but also I'm always trying to be in his presence as I'm doing things, as I'm driving or as I'm doing other things. I try to have some sort of like internal prayers throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I was listening to somebody quoting A.W. Tozer this week. Well, actually last week. And it really impacted me a lot. And this person said that A.W. Tozer said, every man is as close to God as he wants to be.
Right.
And I want to be very close to my Lord. I love him. So I want to be intentional in my relationship with him. So that's what I try to do. I try to be very intentional in my prayer life with him. Yeah.
And that's wonderful. And obviously you working alongside you and all of our team, this is not a job for us. This is our calling because it's our passion. And it's a passion that you said starts with Jesus. We love Jesus and we love his church because the church is his bride. And, if you want to bless any husband, you want to tell him that you love on the bride. And we love the church. And then we love missions because ultimately we love the world. And we know that God loves the world. The cross was God's demonstration of his love for the world, and the outpouring of mission that we want to see all around the world is we want to see as many people as possible come into a personal relationship with God through Jesus, empowered by the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And to do that, we need to get out there. We need to say, here I am, Lord, send me. So last word, Joyce, before we close, if you had one thing, one encouragement for somebody who is sensing God might be calling them, what would you give? What would you say to them?
Well, I would tell them to simply trust in God's calling. As I said before, it is his calling. It is his mission. And that calling is not dependent only on our efforts, on our achievements or capabilities. It's not where you come from. It doesn't matter your past. It doesn't matter your means or your status or your title or your lack of titles, your profession or even your age. But on his purpose, and God has a purpose for each one of us. So God knows you. That's what I would tell you, somebody who's listening now. God knows you, and he's not calling you to come ready-made. He is aware of of our limitations, but he's calling us to come willing to obey. So that's what I would tell people. Just trust in his calling and be obedient. Be willing to obey.
Wonderful, wonderful word. Yeah, God doesn't call the equipped; He equips the called, and He makes them ready. As I think you said earlier, you quoted that the one who calls us is faithful, right? And He will do it. Joyce, I see God doing amazing things in your life and through you and Howie as a couple, your family and missions, and we're grateful for you. Thank you so much for this conversation. I know that people listening will have loved the things that you say. They'll have caught your passion, and maybe just somebody out there has heard the voice of the Lord today saying, who will go for us? And they may say, here I am, send me.
Amen.
Joyce.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to the Holiness Today podcast.
If you enjoyed this production and wish to hear more, visit holinesstoday.org/podcast or find us on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts.